Hey, welcome! Today's video is super exciting because I'm going to be ranking the final performances for Queendom. So from what I understand, these are essentially the songs that these artists are coming back with, and they should have music videos. I stopped watching Queendom after the last video I made, so forgive me for my ignorance. For this video, we're going to be talking about everyone, and we're going to be talking about everyone objectively. Well, as objective as it can get, I guess. However, if you guys are interested in me pointing out all the hidden details and hidden meanings in Bom's performances, then let me know in the comments down below. There's a lot of shade at YG, so we're gonna start with my least favorite performances all the way to my favorite performances. Actually, I'm gonna stop you right there to remind you to subscribe to this channel, click the bell to be notified, and you can also do little things here and there to help sustain this channel, like liking my videos, commenting, sharing, following me on Amino, and watching my stories. Lovelyz came back with a song called Moonlight. I find personally for Lovelyz that their live vocals were very much overpowered by the backup track, or the backup vocals rather. So we do hear their voices, but I'm very unsure of whether or not these were pre-recorded vocals, because sometimes it just doesn't seem like their facial expressions are really matching what I'm hearing. And this is something that all K-pop artists do, your faves do it. It's not something that's inherently wrong, and especially with such a choreography-based performance, it's not a deal breaker for me. So let's move on to the choreography. I actually really liked the choreography. I thought it was very beautiful, very ethereal. And what I liked about it is that it wasn't very traditionally K-pop. And I actually really appreciate that. Sometimes it's nice to see something a little different, and that's what I feel this performance evoked, was something a little bit different. The reason why it ranks so low is simply because it didn't feel as powerful as it could have. Some of their facial expressions bordered on looking bored rather than sultry. And they themselves, you know, especially with such a strong backup track, they themselves with their faces didn't really evoke that. And I also wish that they would have played a lot more with this mask aspect. I thought it was really cool, but they quickly let that theme go all the way to the very end, and I just wish they would have played with it just a little bit more. As for the outfits, they really gave me pirate vibes. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but it felt like someone just kind of cut up their clothing, and admittedly when they were moving around, it flowed nicely. Moving on to AOA's Sorry. No? Okay. This song ranks higher because it was a bit more powerful. So for this song, I feel like they maintained the same energy as Lovelyz. However, they did have a few parts in the song where it was very high energy, very impactful. I'm personally not the biggest fan of the cowboy aesthetic, but I do appreciate a good theme. It just felt to me that the backup dancers were very overwhelming to a point where I didn't really know who AOA was and who their backup dancers were. I personally don't know AOA, so that could be a contributing factor, but at the same time, the backup dancers' clothings were quite similar to their own clothing of the members. And I totally understand why you would want to use such a large number of backup dancers, because it gives you this feeling of grandeur, it gives you this feeling of greatness, right? And it makes the performance just feel that much more impactful. However, the backup dancers definitely should have had distinct outfits. On another note, the way it was choreographed seemed to me that they were unable to separate the three distinct parts that we see in the beginning. However, there was just so many backup dancers that it ended up looking like a whole crowd. We're gonna see this later on in Mamamoo's performances, how they managed to do that separation, and they also had less backup dancers, and it also made more sense visually. So then as the performance went on, I'm not gonna lie, I felt that it was getting just a bit stale. But then out of nowhere, this girl became such a badass and started beating everyone up, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So yeah, overall, sometimes the energy for me was just a bit lacking, but there were parts of the song that were so high in energy that it kind of made up for it. The next song we're going to talk about is GIDLE's Lion. When the song started, I was really excited that Shuhwa got her own little part, right? Because usually it's Soyeon and friends. I've mentioned this before in other videos. But then near the end, Soyeon gets her own part as well. So I was like, oh, okay, it's still kind of going in that direction. And there's nothing wrong with that. I fully support boss women who take what they want. Shuhwa, for me in the past, hasn't really evoked a lot of emotions for me personally. However, during this entire performance, she actually improved a lot from what I can remember from last time. The song itself was okay for me. I think, you know, it has the potential to be a bop in some ways, and then in other ways I find it just a little bit lacking. On top of that, it kind of reminds me way too much of Empire, so it really gave me that vibe, even down to the very thrones that they sit on at the end. It was very similar, almost too similar to a point where it didn't feel special, because it's something I've seen before from a member, at least of GIDLE. Then at the beginning we have someone, I don't know who it is, narrating something. It reminded me a lot of the beginning of EXO's Mama. I remember everyone going crazy over that back in the day. It was very innovative. Let's talk a bit about choreography. The shields used as part of the choreography was very beautiful. And I think it was a very nice twist on a move that is done very consistently in K-pop. My issue with the performance as a whole is that it feels like GIDLE themselves don't evoke this feeling of power to me. Some of the members do, but then some of the members fall short for me. And again, Soyeon is the only member who's really loud enough that you can hear her voice, while the other members just sing so softly that I can't tell if I'm actually hearing their voices or if I'm hearing a backup track. And she also has very powerful facial expressions, and just some of the members, again, look a little bit bored, and that's not inherently their fault, right? K-pop is just like a very cutthroat industry, and there's such an importance put on looking perfect all the time. So if you do make an ugly face or you do show too much emotion, you could get a lot of backlash for that. So I understand the desire to do that. There's even a part where Shuha has hair in her face and she doesn't care, it doesn't bother her. And that, to me, is such a little detail, but it's so refreshing to see that. Because K-pop idols have it drilled into their heads that they need to look perfect all the time, every second of every single performance. So despite all of this, somehow the performance still manages to feel very powerful. The outfits really just evoke this boss aesthetic, and then the energy from the backup dancers just really bring that powerfulness full circle. Moving on to Bom's performance, she comes in at number 3. This is really hard for me because initially she was number 1, and then I had to take a look at my own personal bias and be like, okay. I just want to point out that the title evokes cockatoo energy. I don't know why. There's this video of a cockatoo who's like trying to get into a room and he's like, for some reason, don't ask me why, I just can't think of the title of the song without thinking of that cockatoo. Parrot rant over, let's get into the performance. Here goes Bom again being a bold, and I appreciate that so much. The top 3 performances really blow me away, so it's really hard to kind of rank them in this way. I feel so bad that she's not number 1. She's number 1 in my second gen heart. However, there are a few downfalls of being bold like this. You have to rely 100% on your voice to make the performance very powerful. But the thing is, there are other groups with really great voices as well. And not only do they have those great voices, but they have all these backup dancers as well, making the performance that much more powerful. It's just hard to rank her because her performance is just on such a different level. Every single other performance makes use of a lot of backup dancers, makes use of many props, makes use of so many external things that make the performance that much better. She relies almost exclusively on her voice and her emotions. So it's kind of like she's just on a different level. If I could give her number 1, I would, but at the same time, there's just I don't know how to explain it. For the rest of the performances, the backup dancers were needed and they were vital to the performances. But for her backup dancers are just there as symbolism. They're not even necessary. Like, if they weren't there, it would be the same performance. The innovation of having a body double for her was really cool, and actually there are so many hidden meanings within this performance. So again, if you guys are interested in me pointing out all the hidden meanings in every single one of her performances, because there's a lot of shade at YG. But yes, she ranks so high because it is so incredibly bold of her to do a performance like that in a competition like this. And I admire that so much. I know this is like a very short little synopsis of her performance, but there's so much to dive into. I have like 2 pages of notes. Number 2 on the list is Oh My Girl with Gorilla. So the rope aspect was very innovative in my opinion, and it was so cool. I was just so curious from the beginning to see in what ways they would incorporate this into the performance, and I was not disappointed. Another part that was just stunning was this part where they essentially body wave into each other and have one member kind of emerge through the ashes, if that makes sense. And then the chorus just hit so hard, and I was not expecting that. I'll be honest, because of the use of strings and all that, I was expecting the performance to be very boring because I thought, okay, well, they're going really all out to make up for something that they're lacking. But obviously, I was wrong. And the vocals, oh my God. Admittedly, there were some times where I couldn't really tell if it was like a backup vocal, but there were parts where I could actually hear someone breathing, and I was like, oh, I love that. As for the outfits, however, they weren't my favorite. It's kind of just like, it's kind of boring, I'm not gonna lie. However, the beauty is really in the accessories. But I don't think that counts because from far, like, you're not going to admire accessories. And also the facial expressions. They had a lot of varied facial expressions, and I really appreciated that. Number 1 goes to Mamamoo with Destiny. So the song was just very soft and beautiful, and then the chorus hit so hard. But it hits so hard for like a good 10 seconds, and then it's over. And then you feel like you've been robbed of something, or like something is missing, and it kind of leaves you with this weird feeling. So I would have appreciated if the chorus was just a bit longer and it had more substance to it. We did get to fully ride the wave of the beat drop at the end though, which was nice. But again, I would have loved to see that a little bit more throughout the song, because by the time you actually like get into the chorus, it's like already over and you're already listening to very beautiful vocals. Otherwise, it was actually really perfect and I really loved the song. Speaking of live vocals, Mamamoo are one of the few performers that actually overpower their backup tracks or overpower their backup vocals. That was kind of the one thing that made the other groups rank so low, was just because I couldn't really feel the emotion through their voices, because to me it felt like I couldn't really hear them. But for Soyeon, for Bom, for Mamamoo, I hear them a lot better. And I feel like there's more of a connection with the performance because of that. When Hwasa makes like these faces, it's just so refreshing to me. Because it's like, yeah, like you're feeling it, and I can tell that you're feeling it, and it's getting me excited to watch you perform. Moving on to the choreography, I actually really enjoyed the choreography. There's these 2 moves at the beginning that are actually just like so simple in nature, yet so impactful at the same time. To me, Mamamoo's performances are not really centered on choreography necessarily, but more on emotions. They're just these really cool women who just move in such a way that make it look so easy. They don't need to zhuzh it up. They just need their voices to be the most impactful thing of the performance, and everything kind of just balances itself out. As for the outfits, I know I said I didn't like this cowboy aesthetic, and I know Fringe kind of borders on that, but the way that they did these outfits was actually so stunning. It's just really hard to go wrong with completely white outfits. So this is why the performance ranks number 1 for me, because they have the powerful vocals, they have powerful emotional connection with their facial expressions. The choreography is very stunning and beautiful without being too overpowering. Overall, just as performers, I feel like they are amazing. So yeah, that's basically all I had to say for this video. Leave down in the comments below how you would rank these performances, and then we'll see how it compares. Don't forget to subscribe and click that bell to be notified, and I will see you guys next time.